Hello everybody, welcome back to Screen Stars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2020 action science fiction film Skylines, or Skyline 3. Now this film is directed by Liam O'Donnell and it stars Lindsay Morgan, Rona Mitra, James Cosmo, Alexandra Siddig, Daniel Bernhardt and Jonathan Howard. Now this film is the third in the series of Skylines films, or Skyline. The first one came out in 2010 and it felt like it was essentially pretty much a standalone film, and it was a fairly disposable film, reasonably forgettable film, but it was certainly watchable if you like. And then they came back with Beyond Skyline, which came out a couple of years ago. I reviewed it on the channel. I thought it was an excellent sequel and I really enjoyed it. And now we have Skylines, which is essentially a direct sequel to Beyond Skyline. And in this one, we essentially go to the aliens' planet to take the war to them. Well, to get something and bring it back. Is like a fetch quest, I suppose you could say. And that's really the story here with this film, although it is a fairly predictable story. Now, my thoughts on this one, to be honest, I'm a little bit disappointed with this one. I'm not going to lie. Like I said, I thought the second one was a real step in the right direction. I mean, it was a film that didn't really need a sequel, but the sequel they gave us, the second one, Beyond Skyline, was excellent. It was a real change up. They did tie the first two films together really well, I thought. And it was a really fun sequel. This time, I don't know, it's a really confused film, I think. It tries to give you a bit of a catch-up at the beginning, but it doesn't really tie all the films together. It just tries to tie this one to the second one. But because the second one was certainly good, it wasn't really memorable in the sense of you remember every detail of it, unless you're like a mega fan of this series or something. So I found myself starting to watch this film at the beginning thinking, oh, I'm not really sure what's going on here. I couldn't remember a lot of the characters, or even if I saw them in the last film. And I felt a little bit lost for much of this film. But anyhow, they get Rose on board, who's like this hybrid between humans and aliens. They bring her back on board. They decide they're going to go to this alien world to get this device that only she can get. She goes with a lot of super marines, if you like, these badass marines. Go to the alien world, as you can imagine, it all goes terribly wrong. Betrayals left and right. Shocks and surprises, not really. And that's kind of it. And I just found this really a little bit predictable. Like I said, there's a betrayal that takes place and you just kind of roll your eyes and think, well, of course, you know, it had to be that guy. And there's this other storyline that's running alongside on Earth. Now the idea is that these aliens we've supposedly made peace with at the end of the last one are living on planet Earth in peace with us, have been turned or poisoned or infected with something that's turning them bad again. And you can tell they've turned bad because when they're good they've got red eyes, when they're bad they've got blue eyes. It probably would have made sense to do it the other way around, but there you go. So there's this enclosed story on Earth with Rona Mitra and a few others trying to deal with these aliens that have, or pilots as they call them, I think, that have turned bad again. But it just feels like it's enclosed to that area. It doesn't feel worldwide, even though there's supposedly many of these pilots living on Earth in peace that would have been turned by this infection. It just focuses on this one place, really, and it feels really enclosed, this film. It feels, to say that they're on Earth and they've gone to a whole new planet, it doesn't feel expansive enough. It doesn't feel like they do enough world building as well. This alien planet, it feels like A, they get there too easy, B, the task they get when they get there is too easy. The resistance that's put up against them isn't very good. And it's all very predictable, shooty. stuff, and you know, this character Rose, like I said, this hybrid between aliens and humans, has always struggled with her gifts before, and then guess what? All of a sudden she doesn't. You know, and you just think, oh, I don't know. I just found this film a little bit predictable and a little bit underwhelming. However, I thought the effects, for the most part, were excellent here. I do like the design of the creatures, these alien creatures, and there's a couple of new designs that we get to see here as well. That I thought were all pretty effective. The crafts and the spacecraft and things were all nicely done. I think I've always enjoyed it in all three films, the designs of everything. But there are a couple of dodgy effect shots. I think that's fair to say that look like they're straight out of a cutscene in a video game or something like that. So that really worked. The performances are all fine by all the actors, even if some of the characters are really cookie cutter, cliched characters. That when something happens and you know one of them does something, and you're like, yeah, I expected that from you, to be honest. And the characters that you know get chopped up into mincemeat, you're kind of like, well, yeah, there's some characters there, they're just basically there as cannon fodder. They're not in the film long, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it ticked all these boxes of predictability in a film like this. But it's not a bad film. I just think they didn't pick up the ball that was passed to them after the second one and run with it and do something a bit more interesting with the story. I think they just went with the most predictable route possible with this film. But like I said, it's certainly watchable. There are some good effects on display, and it's not an awful film or anything. But I'm going to give it a 5.5 out of 10 because I was certainly a little bit disappointed with this one. So that's my review for Skylines or Skyline 3. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching, and of course, I will be back with more content on Screen Stars very soon.